Welcome to Flow with Recess, a podcast to help you unlock your best self. Join Chief Psychology Officer of Recess, Matt Swartz, and our CEO, Kelz Bethel, your hosts on this journey to flow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Flow with Recess. I'm Matt Swartz.
And I'm Kelz.
We're excited because we are bringing our third musketeer into the conversation here. We have Lisanne, our co-founder and Recess's lead developer, chief technology officer here. And we're going to talk a little bit about Recess and why we love Recess and why it's important. And also get in a little deeper with Lisanne because you guys have already heard some of our stuff. Matt, Kelz, you guys are boring. Tell us about Lisanne. We're going to investigate Lisanne's journey a little and have her tell us about her experience with Flow. But I think to start, we really want to set the table. You know, what is Recess? What's this thing we've been doing? So Kelz, you know, you are our captain of the ship. You know, why don't you tell us a little, you know, what is this Recess thing? What are we doing here?
Yeah, so, I mean, put simply at our simplest form, I mean, Recess is a mind tech app for achieving flow state, right? It's pretty simple. So it's a mobile app. We're using technology to help us to get and achieve flow state. And really and truly, what we're doing with Recess is that we're combining the scalability of self-paced and self-help options, but we're trying to make it more efficient. Almost, I mean, not as, but we're trying to make it more efficient by using some neuroscience and neuropsychology.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well stated. And, you know, the hope we shared in previous podcasts, right? Our hope is to be able to get this to everybody, right? To make it accessible to everyone.
Exactly.
So the company itself, you know, this little ragtag group of growers and doers that we formed here, you know, we've spent some time on figuring out who we are collectively. You know, we've sorted through our vision, our mission, our values, and we share those at pretty much every talk we give and every interaction with new people we're bringing on board, because we recognize how important and key that is to building this, you know, multi-celled organism called Recess. So again, Kelz, would you know, kind of share with everybody, you know, what is Recess's vision? What's our mission and what's our values?
Yeah, so our vision is really that we want to empower people everywhere, right? The first thing that we're doing is empowerment. So we want to empower people everywhere to embody a state of flow so that they could then meaningfully impact the world, right? So it's really about empowerment, it's about flow state, and it's about helping people to achieve and to impact the world around us. So that's
our vision.
Yeah, that's a big vision.
Yeah.
And in terms of our mission, what we're doing and how we're doing that is that we want to help to increase performance and mental fitness at scale by digitizing leading edge neurotechnology, right? And that's where the technology comes into play. We're using technology to help reach more people, to help to scale to all these growers, doers that we have in our community.
Yeah. And how about our values, Kelz? What are the sort of core principles that we're trying to live by here?
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, we went through this whole process where we did a combination of the three of us values, and it really came down to 4 main values. We value freedom, right? Freedom is important for all of us. Growth, you know, Recess is about us being the best version of ourselves and just continuously growing and learning. We value openness, and that is like openness to experience, but just openness in terms of inclusivity as well. And we value community. Everything that we're doing, I mean, we speak about it all the time, right? As we share about Recess, we want to build a community around vulnerability. We want to build a community, and that is one of the main values at which we're building Recess upon.
Yeah, and it's super exciting for me. You know, in my different work with different companies, you know, I watch people and work together to identify these values. And when a company can work around these values and make decisions around these values and hire around these values and it really creates a cohesive company and a cohesive entity. And when they struggle, it's often because there's already mismatch or disconnection inside the organization, and those values then just become some fancy thing to put on the wall rather than guiding principles, right? And it allows us to sort of go, okay, does it, for example, making a podcast, right? What values does this fit? Right.
Exactly.
Well, this is community. This is openness. This is growth. And it's even freedom. It's the freedom to share the things that we want to share. Right. So it's allows us to sort of make those decisions collectively a little better together. So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Awesome. So I think the next thing we really wanted to make sure we did was give everybody who's, the viewers who've already liked the first couple of episodes, who are interested in what we're doing, get a little window into, of all the projects we could do, why Recess, right? Why is Recess important to each of us? And given that we have our guest here and we've just spent the first portion talking, I want to introduce Lisanne. And Lisanne, if you just introduce yourself briefly, kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do with Recess, and then share with us why Recess is important for you.
Okay, thanks for the welcome. I'm Lisanne. I have lived most of my life in Holland. I moved to Portugal about 5 years ago. I have a background in psychology and neuroscience as my master's. And after my studies, I kind of went a different path and I became a software developer. And that's what I've been since for about the last 8 years. Yeah, and why Recess? I mean, Kelz and I met in Portugal and we kind of kept talking over the years. And yeah, she always had an idea of helping people, like building something to help people. And this sounded really good to me, especially when she mentioned it would touch on neuroscience and kind of mine and her background. And then combined with her looking for a software developer, which is my current profession, I was actually very enthusiastic to be part of this because I was also looking for something a bit more meaningful to contribute to the world. And yeah, it came at a perfect time when I was also looking, and that's how we got into it. And that's how, yeah, I got enthusiastic for the project.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's, something we all share is that this feels like really meaningful work to us, right? That we can see the significance and the impact. And then, of course, we all share the background in psychology. And I think the expertise, but also the vision, that's where we match up.
Exactly.
It has been a pleasure getting to know you on the journey, Lisanne, and we're going to get to know you plenty more as we grill you. We guys got to be careful. We've all agreed before we started the podcast, Lisanne is a talker, so just be prepared. But before we dive in, Kelz, how about you? Why is Recess important to you?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I've always been somebody who created. I always been somebody who was entrepreneur and always started my different projects. But there came a point in my life and my personal journey where I wanted to, even though doing meaningful work was important to me, that's why I did my master's in psychology. Always wanted to give back or to do something that helped. I sort of deviated a bit and was just, doing different projects that I thought would make money. Just wanted to be successful. And so Recess came at a point where I really wanted to, just like Lisanne was saying, do something that could take my experience in technology and tech entrepreneurship and really make an impact with more people, and I think that's really what all of us sort of agree on in different versions of our journey, is that we want to do something that could make an impact, right? And that's really why, it's super important, not only that we could create this cool business and we could bring on a team and so forth, but we really want to help people, and we want to help people at scale. So that's why, even in terms of the vision, mission, values, a lot of the things that we highlighted before is really about scale. It's really about making an impact to a lot of people, and this is where technology comes into play, right? So it's about merging technology with the impact of psychology. And I mean, all of us have this sort of background in some sort of behavioral field, but yeah, that's why recess is important to me.
Yeah.
And what about you, Matt? How give us a little bit about your journey and why is recess important to you?
Yeah, so professional and personal, and we've already talked a little bit about this, and I'm sure we'll talk about more, so I'll keep my version short. But, what you said about like so much of my, so many of my projects previously have been about, I think, initially proving myself, right? Let me see what I can do. And then also, I want to make money, right? And I'm lucky enough that I have had now almost 10 years of experience in therapy, in coaching, in training, in consulting, that has shown me, I can make an impact. I know how to improve people's lives, right? I've seen people's lives transform in front of me, and I've got the success thing, taken care of, right? But it's scale for me. It's like, oh God, I just want more people to have access to this, to grow, and this technology, this bilateral technology that I've seen transform so many of my patients' lives, and then transform my life, right? Which is where, the real story, right, is spending a lifetime in therapy until I was 28, and then finding bilateral and EMDR and watching my growth really skyrocket and wanting everybody to have access to that. If I had that when I was 6, gosh, I could have avoided a lot of pain. It would have been nice, right? And would have been able to help even more people maybe. So, wanting everybody to have access to that technology, wanting to save people some pain, and wanting to make it democratized in a way that anybody can access to it. And then I think what has now become the most important part, this has been a blast. I'm having so much fun. I'm looking forward to, now that we're back on the podcast, it just electrifies me when we do the presentations, when we're growing the community, when we're developing this thing. I'm just having a blast. And I am loving getting to know you guys. And this experience just has been, so much fun. So I want more of that.
Yeah. Fun, exactly. I like that you brought up that part, because it's true. This experience has been really positive and just just fulfilling work. You just feel fulfilled as we go through this process, And I'm happy you brought that up, Matt.
We're in the right place.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel that way, not in the right place. So, awesome. So that's a little bit about the general, recess stuff. And we really wanted to take most of today's time to get to know Lisanne. And I think there are people out there that will, that will click with me or click with Kelz, but there's also a lot of people out there that will click with Lisanne. Lisanne is not on the podcast. She's not, but she is a really important part of recess and essential in terms of what people are actually interacting with on a day-to-day basis. And so we want to make sure everybody has the chance to get to know her and her journey and the journey of the application development. So, Lisanne, I know you already kind of talked about it a little, but if you give a slightly longer version of the story, of how you and Kelz met originally, that would be a good place to start.
Okay. So we met, I believe, in 2017 when I was attending Web Summit and Kelz was equally attending Web Summit, and we had a friend in common who connected us, and we met up after one of the days, I believe, and we started talking, and she told me about the project that she was working on at the time, and I wasn't necessarily working on anything specific out of just my regular job, but she showed some interest in the fact that I was a developer, and we exchanged some contact details, and we stayed in touch a little bit until about maybe 2 years later or 1.5 years later, she reached out and asked if I was interested in being lead developer on a project that she was thinking about. And yeah, basically that's how we started talking more details and like fully creating the like the idea and how we would be able to help a lot of people and how we could both contribute to that project. And yeah, like here we are now. I think it's another 2 years later almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think.
like, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Matt, and I will say after.
I was going to ask another question. So you go ahead.
Okay, what I was going to say is just, I would like to highlight like what was so interesting about meeting Lisan as well is because we almost had this sort of similar experience where, I did like this master's in psychology and she had this background in neuroscience, and then we sort of just like switched, right? And I found that to be almost like there's like this synchronicity in terms of like a perfect match for what we were building with Recess, because although I have this background in building tech startups, I still have this master's in psychology, so I understand a lot of that stuff. And similar with Lisan, and as much as you could look for a CTO who could just do tech, the fact that Lisan is like perfect for what we're building here with her background with psychology and neuroscience, I found it to be like completely interesting. And that's what I was going to say, Matt, before you go on to your next question.
Well, so I was curious. You already sort of shared how it started, but Lisan, like the first couple of weeks, couple of months, what was like the egg? What was the baby version of this? Like, where did you guys? What was the first kind of idea that, I mean, since I think has morphed and changed, but where did it start?
I think the basic idea came from Kelz telling me that the project that she was working on at the time it had been a nice experience and she had something fully functional and people were interested in like being customers and even I believe investing or buying even. But it wasn't giving her any fulfillment in terms of feeling that she had helped a lot of people or that she had made the world a better place. And basically, that's how the idea started developing. I think I'm not exactly sure what the exact idea was that you came with, but basically, it was just about, hey, do you feel like you want to somehow get in touch with your background again in neuroscience or psychology? And do you feel like building something that could help a lot of people? And basically, yeah, I said, that sounds really good. Like, what do you have? And I'm not sure what it was that I can't remember, Kels. Maybe you can remember the original project.
Yeah, I think the original project was around the idea of entrepreneurs. I think that was the original project. Like we thought, I remember us like almost like discussing more around something for this group of people that was more like for entrepreneurs that would help them to deal with their mental health, because the biggest thing that we were sort of diving into at that point in time is this sort of correlation between this mental health statistic. 42% of entrepreneurs have this underlying mental health condition, and an entrepreneur. So we wanted to build something that would help this group of persons to be able to achieve more, but also just be able to be more fulfilled. And so that was like the seed of the group of people that we were focusing on. And as we got more into it, we just started to just dive more into research. Like, what does that mean? Is this, and then this is where trauma came into play, and what does it mean? Why is this happening? So it was almost that we didn't really start, Matt, as said that we didn't really start with an idea. Like we started with a problem. We started with a vision, and then from that vision, because even Matt, like that's how we connected as well. It was almost this seed that was there, and then the more we got into it is the more we're like, okay, so this makes sense. Let's add this. Okay, well, this makes sense. We could do this. This approach makes more sense. And I remember we had one kind of vision of an idea. I mean, I know Lisan, but I remember we had one vision of an idea, and I remember we were thinking like, they have a bunch of stuff. I can't remember what that vision of idea was. And I remember saying like, there are a bunch of stuff that might be similar to this. And I remember going back, and I remember like thinking about like, and then I think that is where like the trauma informed approach came into play after that point.
Mm-hmm.
Where so first it was just like the entrepreneurs and wanting them to, deal with their mental health, but then the approach in terms of more the neurobiological stuff came into just doing more and more research. So it was almost like a seed, and then the idea started to was pruned out as we continue to sort of like go along.
Yeah, I remember having a lot of chats and video calls and just like yesing or knowing ideas basically. And I think I wanted to dive more into like the neuroscience part because I found it very like kind of social psychology kind of in the beginning. So I felt like I wanted to dive a bit more in like actual like a bit more hardcore sciencey things. And I think that's when we touched on, well, you actually found it, this this neurotech for actually what's also being used by psychologists on a daily basis, but just digitizing, microdosing. So that really touched on my like interest and my background.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to do something weird here. I want to get back to the recess stuff. I want to bookend us with the recess stuff. And I want to dive in, Lisanne, I'm going to switch the order here a little. And I want to dive in more specifically on some of the youth stuff, right? So, Lisanne, when we think about all of this, right here, we've landed, okay, we're going to microdose this and we're going to help people find flow. In order to have any of that vision and know where you're going, you have to be able to have some experience of what we're trying to help give to other people. So the first question I have, Lisanne, is, where do you find flow? Like when we talk about flow, we talk about helping other people find flow. What experiences do you point to that you want to share with other people?
I think sometimes it depends on, I guess, the time of my life or the time of the week, even time of the year, where sometimes I just do not find flow. Like I'm all over the place and I'm distracted and I feel like I'm getting nothing done and time is flying. Other days I can find flow in having some type of a routine. For example, like sleeping at a reasonable hour, making sure I always get 8 hours of sleep. Once I get up, I try not to get lost on my phone, social media, or whatever. I try to just like slowly wake up and focus on the day ahead, basically not to get sucked into like things that unconsciously like get your brain hooked. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work, but I think I also get flow from just taking a break sometimes, like because I work a lot behind the computer. Sometimes I get so stuck on something I can't see the solution, and just going for a walk really like just kind of, I'm still thinking about it, but just being outside and walking and being away from that screen just sometimes helps me solve the problem immediately once I sit back down behind my computer and I'm like, wow, why did I not see that? So I think that's like a moment how I could create flow by just like kind of stepping away from what I'm doing. And it's also about finding the right balance between social life, I think, and work life. For me, being with friends and being able to talk about funny things, heavy things, just everything that's going on in my life is very, for me, that helps with, staying in flow, my day to day, knowing that, I have my friends, my family around, and and small things like a podcast before bedtime or reading something, or just I've tried meditating for quite a while. Like it takes effort, but I found my little things that get me back on track, and sometimes also just accepting that you just can't get in flow for that moment is also fine. Like even that sometimes can get you into flow just because of accepting that it's just not it's not going. So it's like a lot of small things, I guess.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, I think it's super relatable, Lisanne. And I'm curious because I know you were just traveling a bunch. Do you find flow traveling or not really?
Yeah, it's like a different type of flow maybe. It's kind of a reset button for me. Especially of course with 2020, 2021, this whole COVID drama, like being trapped in one place for a long time. Yeah, for me it's a reset, like going away to places where I might feel a bit less comfortable or where I have a change of environment, have to adapt. Then getting back home is kind of like just like a new appreciation for everything. Getting back into my routine that might have previously got boring now feels like a breath of fresh air, getting back into your usual things, back into your own place. For me, it's a reset. So I think it's also like like getting back in flow after just kind of getting lost, maybe. I think reset slash flow. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. And then on the other side of that, Lisanne, and everybody listening, we'd love to hear about, your personal growth journey, right? Like what aspects, challenges have made it difficult for you to find flow. So I think those are the things that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I get that, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's a lot of things, of course. Like it could be social things, maybe family related, or friendship things, relationship things, work things. Yeah, for me, it's been, I guess it started early, my growth journey. I've always felt a little bit out of place in like my home country. I feel at home when I'm there, but I never felt like I wanted to really stay there. So that was really blocking my flow, because I was constantly thinking of getting out, but still I was there, like first finishing my studies, of course, then like trying to build up my CV a little bit by like just taking an office job in a place where I didn't necessarily want to be. So I think it started more or less there, where I just tried to kind of figure out like, who am I? Where do I want to be? And I was doing this mostly by myself and no, with some people around me, friends and people. Like I didn't start therapy to figure out more things until I was about 28 years old. After I'd already moved, after I kind of settled and kind of felt more like I knew who I was, but I was still kind of walking like into some walls now and then. I guess also mostly on a relationship basis. Like I just sometimes felt blockages and patterns were repeating itself, and I'm just like, why? Like I have my eyes open, what's happening? Like why can I not avoid these things? That's why I started to do some therapy for about a year and a half. Really opened my eyes, really got to know myself even better. And yeah, in terms of flow, I think it's like really an ongoing thing for me. Like I've always had some periods in my life where I'm super focused, and like during my studies, my first job, very, very focused. Then after that, like kind of lost track of like, what am I doing? What do I want? Like I moved countries, like kind of randomly quit my job, quit my apartment, just moved, no plan. Even though I think at that time I did feel flow, because I was like, I'm gonna just do this, like it's going to somehow work out. Like it's an ongoing battle in a way, but also like flow comes from the most interesting places and interesting things that you do.
Want to get even deeper into your flow? Learn more about today's episode on our blog, The Science of Productivity. Find out more about today's topic by visiting our blog, Why Mental Health Matters, our mission to improve productivity through mental wellness. Read more to get more insights and tips on how you can maintain your state of flow every day with Recess.
So much good stuff. Yeah, I mean, so working backwards, right? What you just said about you were in flow, right? When you find see the resistance was holding on to all of those things that weren't fitting you, right? And when you find and unfortunately we often don't listen to the flow until it starts screaming at us. And then you're just like, okay, fine. And you let it all go and it's like whoosh. And actually that part was easier than the part that came before, which was the painful part of like, I don't belong here, I don't belong here, I don't, right? And so I think that's so important for everyone to know that, yeah, sometimes getting into the flow, jumping into the water is super scary because you don't know what you're jumping into. But it's sometimes that's how it is. And then before that, Lisanne, you're talking about those blockages and those repeating patterns that eventually led you into therapy. And I think that is the less extreme version, of the second example, which is, sometimes we feel like we're rats in this invisible maze and we keep running into walls and hitting dead ends and we don't understand why. And those are often the things that are preventing us from getting into flow. And we try to force our way through them instead of sort of understanding what are these patterns, what are these blockages, why are they here, how can I heal them, how can I let these things go? And then as we do, often we find, the trickle of flow starts kind of coming back. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, for sure. It was absolutely like that. And I think probably I would have done something sooner to get back to my real self, like in a way of not trying to push through those walls, but trying to figure out, why am I standing in front of this wall? Like, why is this here? If there had been anything else around that would have made the kind of obstacle to actually contact a therapist, that it probably would have taken me less long, would have been younger, and would have resolved some of the things a bit faster. But yeah, it's exactly like that. Always felt like I'm pushing through some wall, and sometimes I feel like I'm just like escaping. I'm moving countries. I love traveling. Like, what am I doing? Is this me just like getting into flow, or is this me escaping something that's blocking me from flow? Like, yeah, I was just always a bit confused. And if there had been some things around that could have helped me, apart from therapy, which did really help me, but it's just like a thing. You have to kind of step in and do that, which could be a lot for some people. Even for me, it took me a year to actually really decide and go.
Yeah. But like you said, if we had something before that, like recess, right? Exactly. That was a smaller step that helped us, that was the same message, which is these blockages, right?
Exactly.
Are keeping you from the flow. How can we address the simple blockages easily? Then it wouldn't have been as big of a leap to go, okay, this is helping, but I need some therapy. It would have probably been more of like an escalator ride rather than
For sure. Yeah.
And then the last thing you said, I think is really important, is that like that early feeling of not belonging, right? Of not wanting to be in the Netherlands, and there being something that just, and that's it too, though. That's the flow knocking at your door, right? Like, let's go somewhere else, right? Let's go. And when we're young, though, we don't know how to sort all of that out, right? And then you have all of these external forces telling you not to listen to that and go to school and go to work and and the reality is, probably sooner or later you were going to have to drop everything and leave, and you got there sooner or later, right? And what if you had known about that 15 years ago, right? Or whatever, what if you had been able to just leap into that? The river was still there, the flow was still there, you would have landed on your feet, right?
100%.
But we didn't have the tools, we didn't have the skills, we didn't have the knowledge, so we couldn't listen, we couldn't get in the river at that point, right? So the flow has been knocking the whole time, right?
It was screaming, as you said, really, because I was even getting like pretty severe seasonal depressions, and like, yeah, it was getting bad. And I felt like I said like everything will be solved if I just move. But this sounded so crazy to people. Like, why can't you just, be happy here? Like, why can't you just deal with whatever it is here? Like, why do you have to run away? So yeah, it didn't help. Like my surroundings, they were supportive until a certain level, but they didn't understand. And some of them made me, I think, also think like I'm running from something, I'm avoiding my problems. But if I really listened to myself, it wasn't that. Like, it really was me, like, looking for that flow that I knew I would find if I would just get out. And I did. Like, I've not looked back. Like, it's been amazing. It has, like, had a lot of obstacles, yes, but haven't had any seasonal depression, nothing. Like, I've been very happy and I've been way more energized. And I got sick way less. Like, it's been really crazy. I got sick at least 2-3 times a year back home. And here, the first 2 years, I don't think I got sick even once. It was really amazing.
Your body's telling you, you know, and
Yeah.
I, for anybody else that's out there that's like Lisanne, right? So here's the thing about the flow. When I, you know, as a therapist, right, you want to think that there's some sort of one size all advice, you know, like, yeah, like don't run away from your problems, stay and work on them, or, you know, or whatever, or yeah, start fresh. But the thing about the flow is it's different for everybody. Everybody's tree grows differently. So what's running away from one person is running towards for another. Yeah. And the only person that can tell you is you. And that's, you know, only you have that conduit into the flow. So the best therapists, the best helpers, you know, we don't give advice. We help you find your own answers, right? And so you had the answer all along. And really the work is helping you decondition all of the layers of bullshit that are separating you from the answer you already had, that you grew to doubt because of the fear of everybody else around you, their fear of disconnection, their unaddressed lack of belonging that they haven't worked through, right? And so then we project it on everybody else, and then we teach other people to cut themselves off from the flow. I mean, they can't, if they're not connected to the flow, they don't know how to connect you. But when you're connected to the flow, it's so easy to help other people connect to the flow, right? You just, it's, you know, it's natural. It's like, yeah, well, I can't tell you what to do. You know, what's that like for you? What are you experiencing? How does it feel? Right? Those things come naturally when we're in the flow. It's easier to help other people. So classic, right? Classic example of other people accidentally, you know, cutting you off of the flow because of their own fear, because of their own challenges, because of what those things meant to them. Not trying to hurt you, you know?
Yeah, completely.
That was pretty good. What about in terms of, as we're talking about flow and all of that, and where you are at now with your journey and stuff, what area of flow you think you're working on right now? You know, we have the 5 areas of flow. What area do you think in your journey is important to you at this stage of your life?
I think for me now, it's really like purpose, finding kind of my place in this world. You know, when you're younger, it's about, okay, finishing your studies and getting a job and kind of like, you know, kind of just getting ahead somehow, but you're not really sure what you're doing. I think after I've crossed my 30s, I felt like very comfortable with who I was, and I mean, still very comfortable. And now I feel like, yeah, I just want to kind of carve out my spot in this universe and kind of, like, I don't know, leave a legacy as small as it might be, just kind of like, yeah, work on finding what my true purpose is and what I'm here for and how I can help others and how I can still help myself as well. Yeah, I think that would be it for me.
Yeah, that's so important. It almost also, I mean, we spoke about this, Matt, in terms of some of our session, but it also comes into that sort of Maslow as well, right? Like it just makes perfect sense in terms of where you're at, and after you're settled in terms of finances and you feel more stable and structured and everything. Now is really about, well, what is important to me, you know?
Yeah. And I my brain wants to go down a 15-minute rabbit hole, you know, so just real quickly using Lisanne as an example, you know, she's telling us about this, using Maslow, she's telling us about this connection and belonging thing, right? That showed up when she was a kid. Like she knew it, she felt it. I don't belong. I'm not connecting in the way I want to connect. And almost always when there's, an issue, it's the rung underneath that, is blocking us maybe from making a change in this case, or is, if I just leave, I won't be safe. And so fundamentally, we have to work on the safety issue first. And then once she, gets a job, makes enough money, whatever, she's like, okay, I can figure this out. I'm safe. I'm going. Right. And it doesn't mean she's completely safe, but she's safe enough that now she can really work on that connection issue. Right. And as she does, and she connects, and she connects to her place, and she connects to her people, and she builds her network. Right. Then she feels good. Now it's time for the next one. It's time for achievement. Who am I? What impact do I want to make? What's my purpose? Right. And it's annoyingly accurate a lot of the time.
That's completely
Is that all fair?
accurate. That's so fair. That's exactly how it happened. Yes.
I find these frameworks to be so helpful, which is why I love the 5 factors of flow, because we can look at, okay, what am I working on? What do I need to work on? What do I need to improve? So, so we always like to give some tips, right? So, Lisanne, for you, and please, this doesn't need to be big. This doesn't need to be like, just go with what's true for you. What tips would you give other people, who are like you, maybe, right, to increasing their flow? Well, other developers, other travelers, what 1, 2, or 3 things have helped you the most in increasing your flow that you would want to share with others?
I think one of the things would be to really listen to yourself, which sounds simple and at the same time sounds really hard. Like it's really, sometimes you don't know if you're listening to your own voice or if you're listening to the voices of people that you have spoken to. I think this also goes back to my past when people were kind of confused why I wanted to leave, and that I felt like, is this really what I want, or am I running from something, So yeah, if I had just really listened to who I am, what I want, what I need, things would have probably maybe flown better, but also I wouldn't have changed anything. But yeah, I would say to people, really listen to yourself. Even if everyone around you does something one way, like way A, and you feel like way A is not the way for you, like just go way B. Really, like everyone's unique, and what the majority does or what everyone does not have to work for you. That's one big one, yeah. I mean, other tips, I don't know, in terms of travel, like, yeah, like things can be scary, but like for me, I don't know, like this could be different for other people, but for me, it's really like connecting to people is so important. And even if you're in a strange environment, there's always people who are like you. There's always people who you connect with, who you vibe with, and they're literally everywhere on the planet. So yeah, don't be afraid, like explore and really like meet people. That it's amazing how similar people are across the planet and how much you have in common with strangers from different countries.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like how we connected. It's just random, and if you're open to connections, a lot could happen, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
2 of our values right there: openness and community, right?
Yes.
But so to sum up, Lisanne, your 2 tips really would be listen to yourself and be open to finding that connection with others, no matter where you go.
Yes.
And I think those are definitely things that bring me into the flow too. So and wanting to wrap up, just a couple more questions about Recess, and then we'll close down here. So in terms of the application development and everything that's gone on behind the scenes, I'd be interested in hearing your favorite moment and your most challenging moment.
I would say my favorite moment was when I'm building the API, which is kind of the connection that our app has to the database. And yeah, I think my favorite moment was when the API endpoints that I made were actually connected to our app and we're working and we're actually
Hold on, Liz. I think you dropped out a bit. So I feel like
Okay,
you
sorry.
should.
We'll just ask the question again.
Yeah, so Matt, ask it again. And
So, well, I mean, we can just cut from where I asked the question. So pretend I just asked the question, Lisanne. What is your favorite moment and your most challenging moment so far in the development of the app?
Okay, so yeah, my favorite moment would be because I'm the backend developer, I develop the API, which is the part that connects our app to the database. And my favorite moment would be when the parts that I developed were actually fully functional and we had a working app that people could test and we ran the beta with it. And yeah, it was pretty exciting to see that everything was holding up. I mean, even with many, many years of experience, this was all on my shoulders and it was quite exciting and it was a good moment for me. Yeah, like some more hardships, some more, I don't know, like less positive things were that working with other developers is not always very easy. Yeah, I'm used to working for a collective goal, I think, with the companies that I work for. But if it's kind of our product and we're trying to like onboard other developers to help us out, but they don't feel super connected with the product or with our goals. And it's really hard to kind of be aligned and keep them motivated or keep, pushing forward. And yeah, those are like my less favorite moments.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the point that you said, it's not that, working with people suck. It's that if, what's worked so well for us is we have this shared vision, right? And if these other people are coming in, they don't have that shared vision. It's hard for them to get into the flow with us. It's almost like they're on the bank and we're riding down the river and they don't really know how to, jump in. And so that's just, So I think, we'll have to be intentional about finding some developers that are really in the flow with us. That's the next goal.
Yeah, exactly.
So in closing down, my last question, Lisanne, and I appreciate all that you've shared with us, is what are you looking forward to for the future of Recess?
For the future, I'm really looking forward to have a working product that people are enthusiastic about, where they can track their progress, where they can actually feel that they have improvements in their flow, that they can get into flow whenever they want by just really using our app. And yeah, even for myself, like I'm very excited to include this in my daily routine and just really whenever I feel like I'm stuck, maybe I don't have to go for that walk. Like, maybe I can just open Recess and just, or even do both, really. So
Do both, yeah.
Get into super flow. So yeah, like that's really what I'm looking forward to, having like a product that we can be proud of and that everyone is finding useful.
That's awesome. Well, Lisanne, we have a lot to thank you for, like you said, in terms of getting to the point where the beta we had something we could actually use, right? And all the stuff that we're building to come. I'm really grateful because you're the person who's taking the thing I have, or not just me, but I have in my head, Kelz has in her head, and making it into something real. Because without you, I don't know how to freaking code. Are you kidding me? Right? So it's your power to take what the three of us are thinking and feeling and turn it into reality. I so greatly appreciate.
Thanks, Matt. It would only work with the help of you guys, like not coding maybe, but just like sharing a vision and, pushing us forward and keeping everyone enthusiastic. Like, yeah, we need all of us. So yeah, thanks, Matt.
Yes, we do. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. Well, Lisanne, again, thank you so much for being here with us. And I really was awesome I love, you sharing that part about how you were feeling in the Netherlands. Like, it just adds so much more insight, not, in terms of working with you and understanding the flow for you. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there that clicked with that. And thank you for sharing your heart with us and being here. Kelz, anything else before we close down?
No, I just want to just jump on what you're saying, Matt, and just really thank you, Lisanne, for joining us, but also thank you for being such a sport. Like I think, coming into the team and just bringing in all your expertise is, again, as you said, we need all of us, and just want to thank you for, being a part of this journey, this very non-linear journey together. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us on Flow with Recess. We'll see you guys next time around for episode number 4. Thanks for being here. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Flow with Recess. By the way, your flow doesn't have to end here. Our Recess app helps listeners unlock their most productive selves by reducing anxiety and improving their focus. You can find out more about our app as well as more resources to support you on your journey by visiting our website withrecess.com. Links to our bilateral playlist and this week's blog post are also found in our show notes. Until next time, find your flow and get unstuck with Recess.